It wasn't particularly pretty at times, but Celtic get the job done with a 2-1 win over Dundee in matchday 34 of this season's Scottish Premiership. This is Tino with the Final Whistle Show, joined here by Brydo and by James. Brydo, I'll come to you first. What's your initial response to the win?
Just that, it's a win. That's it. That's all. It doesn't really matter at this minute in time, really. Obviously, we'll go through the performance and break it down probably first half and second half, but just get the 3 points, and it's one game closer in my book. So one less opportunity to slip up. So we've passed the test. A decent team, Dundee, as we've seen against the Rangers. Horrible pitch, I thought, but we got the job done.
James, does the performance matter at all? A wee bit, or is it all about results at this stage?
I mean, it's not all important, of course, but yeah, I mean, I would take the pitch into consideration. I thought it was wobbly as you like, and you would expect that a pitch that's been in poor condition starting to dry up, and they're probably terrified to water it, you know. So it was dry and it was wobbly, so that's a factor. But I don't think there's many players get pass marks today, and you know, the main reason that I've got an issue with that is it looked attitudinal, like they were starting to feel the pressure a wee bit. And that's not been the mood in the camp. It's been quite calm, certainly from Rodgers. Any of the players you hear, you know, they're just, you know, getting on the next game and so on and so on. But you've got to turn up in those games. And so, yeah, the performance isn't the most important. The result was. But I think Brendan will have a few words to say to him tomorrow in a positive way and saying, just go and play your game, because our playmakers really let us down today, I felt.
Do you think some of the players were nervous?
Yeah, a lot of unforced errors, slack passes. I mean, an awful lot. And that puts you back under pressure. And it was from maybe not the first minute, but from 10 minutes in till the 90th minute, there was loads of that, putting ourselves under pressure and we don't need to. And you can't be doing that in a title race.
Yeah. But we'll get to it, I suppose, as we start to dissect the game. But did anyone stand out for you? Did anyone stand up to be counted? Not stand up to be counted. That's maybe indicating that guys are hiding, which I'm not trying to say. But, you know, hard to identify a man of the match in a game like that.
Yeah. I would agree with that. I do think the pitch played a massive part in that, especially for the creative players in the middle where there's a lot of bodies, the ball's bobbling about, you know, sclaff passes all the other place. I mean, the ball's up in the air, and yeah, perhaps when the Dundee crowd get up for it and they can sense or smell a bit of blood, if you like, perhaps our players did at times look a bit nervous, yeah, especially in the kind of build-up play from the back. But yeah, I wouldn't say them they stood out. And I don't think they stood out in a really negative sense either. I just think as a collective, they were all much the same.
Yeah, I think that's a bit of it. Just all a wee bit below par. Very strong opening 10 minutes from Celtic. You know, lots of chances created, 5 efforts on goal, I think. But then it gradually went downhill from there. A few folks in the comments, some great comments coming in from the likes of Martin, Robert, Thomas, and please keep the comments coming in. Few comments for Liam Scales as man of the match, and someone else has tweeted us just before we come on. Thomas tweeted us just before we come on there to suggest that he's the clear man of the match. James, where would you be on that? I thought, in terms of some defensive stuff, when you're up against it, backs to the wall, that's kind of Liam Scales' game, but quite a mixed performance for me.
Mixed. And I think that's what you're going to get with Scales. You know, you can do some backs to the wall stuff, great, but, you know, my best player doesn't slice the ball out for a corner in the last 10 minutes. You know, he lacks composure. He was chief culprit for the slack passing. How many times trying to get into guys' feet, and he's just hit it too hard, too soft. He can't seem to get that range right. So, no, I like Scales when it's kind of last gasp, but I don't want it to be last gasp. So, no, I mean, nowhere near man of the match for me. But as Brydo says, no one really stood out. I mean, you can draw a line right through your 3 midfield starters for a start. Take them out. They're not going to get anywhere near it. Kuhn was good for the first 10 minutes. Was getting change out his fullback and disappeared. Yeah, no Scales for me. Thanks.
Yeah, do you know what? I'm questioning who man of the match is. Of course, man of the match is James Forrest. Ultimately, for the impact he had in the game. And I could have just pictured Miff screaming at us there just for not mentioning it. So, you know, we're now nearly 5 minutes in and we've not mentioned James. Absolutely done his job, stepped up. There was a lot of expectancy that he would get the nod today, and he did. And he's absolutely done his job, and he deserves all the plaudits that are coming his way. Very good technique and reaction for the first goal, making himself busy, stealing it back and smashing home the finish, what ultimately proved to be the winner for the second goal. Colin Stewart agrees, saying that James is man of the match, and someone else, first comment of the afternoon, from Paul Curry, James Forrest till I die. So can't argue with those comments. What about his inclusion in the starting lineup, Brydo? Is it, and I'm just asking the question, is it down to all the good work that James is doing, or is it down to inconsistency from other wingers, or maybe a combination of the both?
I think his experience would be the first factor, you know, is why he's in there. And yeah, probably because the other players haven't done it. When James Forrest signed his kind of his contract, I thought it was the right thing to keep guys like that in the building. But, you know, for us to progress, it would be a bit part player, which he kind of has. The problem we've got at the minute is that the players that we've brought in to kind of, I suppose, try to kick us on, they're nowhere near the level of James Forrest even now. Not even James Forrest 6 or 7 years ago. So the fact that he's come in and done the job, I'm glad he's there. I feel like he probably could have been brought in a lot more often than he has been. And then today, I think, but he's probably a cool head, you know, just to do the job that he could do. And that's what he done. He's turned up in the biggest moments of the game, and it's no coincidence that experience can get you over the line in these circumstances, and that's why he turned up, done the job, probably took himself off because he was knackered after 60 minutes, and then sits on the bench and then kind of watches a bit of a car crash happen after that for a wee bit of time. So fair play to him. Yeah, 100% he's the man of the match. I thought he was too obvious to even talk about it at the start, but yeah, for me, it was an obvious choice, and he's done the job.
Yeah, and James, for all the experience and the quality that James Forrest continues to bring and has done for 15 seasons as a Celtic player, he's a modest lad, isn't he? I don't know if he caught it right at the end there. Very reluctant to go and take the plaudits. For a guy that could easily just go up and say, come at me, I continue to do it. What are you saying about it? But he was pretty modest about it, played it down as he always does. And Gypsy King made a good, I think it was Gypsy King, someone made a good comment. Where would we be without James Forrest in this title race? Because he stepped up, particularly recently, with some big moments there, today being the biggest.
Yeah, I mean, to his attitude first and foremost, you know, that's never been in doubt. You know, Forrest does frustrate and still did today in parts, you know, giving the ball away and stuff like that. But, you know, his composure and his attitude to the game, I think he's fitter than he's ever been as a Celtic player. And he's not 50, he's 31, 32. Mm-hmm. So he can still play a part, but it should be off the bench. But, you know, his composure for his goal today were just outstanding. And the determination to get through that ruck of the ball for the second, and if, you know, what looks like it's going to give us a comfy end to the game. He's done his bit, you know, it's the rest of the team have got to then step up and make good for his contribution.
And it definitely wasn't a comfy end to the game, but we'll get to that in due course. Brydo, I've mentioned, I think we can all agree Celtic were pretty good opening 10 minutes, looking hungry and at it and you know, ready from the first whistle. So what's been the difference? We don't get the goal. We end up getting the goal actually against it on a play, however many minutes it was in, 30 minutes or so. What happens to Celtic from that opening 10 minutes when they're playing with a bit of freedom, a bit of confidence and continually probing and, you know, making at least half chances on the Dundee goal? Why do we switch from that to all of a sudden being on the back foot?
I think you've got to give credit to the opposition. So we've come out the traps, all guns blazing really, and then we were moving the ball really, really sharp. Movement was really good. Proper communication between players, linking up together. It looked really, really good, and it looked as if it was going to be relatively comfortable, and the goal was going to be inevitable. Like you said, though, then that changes, but I think it does change to the credit of the opposition as much as anything else. That gets their crowd up on a kind of wee pitch like a wee stadium like Dens Park, and all of a sudden it's like, oh, wait a minute, this isn't going to be easy, and the momentum swings in the game for periods of the game. So sometimes we've got to give, like we did with Aberdeen last week, you've got to sometimes give the opposition as much credit as dissecting our own team. And I think that's part of it. They've got some really good technical players. And they try to play to their strengths. You know, they got a lot of kind of long throw-ins and cross balls into the box, and they played to their strengths as much as they could. And I think it's as much to do with Dundee as it was to do about us as to why that changes.
James, let's get to the goal. Quality assist from Kyogo just to pop the ball up into there to create the chance for James, but the technique is top draw. It's actually a good passage of play from Celtic. I don't know if is it Hatate that maybe feeds into Kyogo. Yeah. It's pretty good stuff. It's pretty slick. I think Kyogo's touch is a bit off, although he might have been getting on the end of it regardless. But James has just stepped forward and he smashed it in. It's a brilliant finish, isn't it?
I mean, you'd be taking that into training and showing the younger players how to strike a volley. Goalie's got absolutely no chance. It's so clean and it's in at the bottom corner. So, you know, a great goal and a great move. You know, Hatate I thought was poor today, but that was, you know, his real kind of spot. It shows you, you know, I would have been kind of advocating for Hatate to get taken off before he hit the post and stuff like that. So when you've got a player like that who've just got sometimes that wee bit of genius to get that ball into Kyogo, he gets a wee bit lucky in the way it lands because it just spins up a wee bit fast on him. But James is there and he takes it so clean. So and then like I said, it's against the run of play, but you're thinking, right, let's build on that now, you know.
Definitely, and you're hoping then that guys like Hatate and McGregor, you know, start to get the foot on the ball and just control the game. You know, goals change games and all that kind of stuff, but it didn't really change it in the positive sense for Celtic. We should have taken control at that stage and we didn't. Brydo, what about Callum McGregor and maybe to a similar extent Hatate today? I thought McGregor was way off it. There was one poor tackle on him, albeit I think it was accidental, but it was nasty and there's potentially a card that could have been dished out at that point. But that aside, he couldn't get going. He gave it away pretty cheaply. He didn't seem to have the legs to get on the end of it. I'm going to ask the question again, and I'm just asking before anyone shoots me down. Is that a sign of him slowing down in general, or maybe just struggling to get back to full sharpness from his recent injury?
I think he's just struggling to get to the full sharpness. I think we're putting him in. I think we're keep dipping him in, dipping the toe in the water to take him out. Hopefully, get the games done, get him back off, in order to kind of build up the minutes for the game at home against Rangers. I think they're trying to get him as ready for that game as they possibly can, without the detriment of the results against other teams. He's went in, yeah. I think it's no coincidence, though, by the way, that all, like you said, all three of the players in the middle of the park, I don't think it's a coincidence that all of them struggled. I think the pitch plays a massive, massive factor, how we play. When we did get Hatate and O'Reilly into those pockets of space, that's when we looked most dangerous. It was just, I didn't do it often enough. And it does stem from the back as well. Liam Scales, I shoot my head when I mentioned man of the match. He would play the ball back to Joe Hart in a bobbly 6-yard box, you know, and you're like, what are you doing, man? But sorry, back to McGregor though. Yeah, I just think that he has been built up for that kind of almost like a cup final for us against Rangers at home, and again, he's put against some decent players in there too. So you know they've got a lot of running around them, but I don't think it's an all-round Callum McGregor slowing down. No, not at all. He's got a lot left to give, I think.
Yeah, fair point. Just in terms of his recent minutes, so he came on against Rangers, as we know, 26 minutes that day. He then gets 20 against St Mirren at Parkhead the following week, 62 against Aberdeen at the weekend, and 62 today. It's clear they're managing him back the way, James. And what we seen, remember, Callum McGregor picked up the cheekbone injury, you know, 2 ago, and was out for a number of weeks or whatever, and then comes back and he just comes back and starts playing 90 minutes straight off the bat. I wonder if it's just a sign of the nature of this injury and the fact they're just going to have to be careful with him. And you've got to manage the body and take his age into consideration. He's 30 years of age now, and maybe you can't just flick the switch and expect him to come back. What do you think? We've obviously got 2 huge games in the horizon. We've got Hearts Saturday coming, 4th of May, and then the Rangers game the following weekend. Do you think he must start in both of those games, or might we be careful? We had the debate actually whether Iwata might have got the nod to start today, but you know, Kalmaki's the captain, and I suppose you'll always start him if you see fit. But where are you at on it, James?
Yeah, I mean, I think first the injuries from a couple of years ago with the mask and stuff, totally different injury. All you're doing is you're missing football then, so you can't keep yourself as fit as you'd like to be. So there was nothing physically wrong with the rest of his body. This one, I think, in another world, he wouldn't be back until the tail end of the season, but he's so crucial and so required that he has to be. So I think we're a wee bit ahead of his schedule. Got to bear in mind the amount of football that Callum Mac's played over the years, and that has a payoff in the end. You know, that has a trade-off, in that your body might start to struggle to shake these things off. We won't really know if it's just the injury itself, or if it's time catching up on him until the start of next season. I would say he's going to get through these games, and we need him to get through these games. To your question about, do we rotate him a wee bit with Wata, I'd go with Brydo on this. I think they're managing him. He might get 65, 70 against Hearts. He might finish against Hearts because it's just that kind of game. If he's fit for it. But no, I don't see Wata replace him. He'll be the man off the bench and Callum Mac starting.
Probably, and it's probably right. I think what you cannot discount is the leadership qualities. He's definitely not at his brilliant best. I think it's fair and okay to say that, and most would agree, I think. But you need him, you need Carter Vickers, you need Joe Hart, you need the leaders in there. And actually, and I say this quite a lot, out with those three, you then get into your reserve pool of leaders. Alistair Johnston's got some of it, Greg Taylor's got some of it, and then there's guys who, it's just not in their nature, is it? It's not a Kyogo thing, it's not a Kuhn thing, it's not a James Forrest thing in terms of how they carry themselves. So you definitely need your vocal guys and your guys who have been there, done that to pull you through. But in a tense title race, and I think it showed at times there, Brydo, no more so than the second half. You get in at half time, you're happy to be 1-0 up. You're hoping there's some fine tuning by the manager. You're hoping you're then going to come out and really step it up a notch. And the opposite's happened. For 10, 15 minutes, we could barely get out of half. And then when we were getting chances, it was slack, it was nervous in possession, it just wasn't what you're looking for. At a time, you just needed somebody to put the foot in the ball and give you a bit of time to breathe. We didn't get that, did we?
No, we didn't, mate. And that was the bit that probably made me more nervous. It was like all through the whole season, we've had in-game inconsistencies. Good for one half, terrible for another. And that would alternate between first and second half and which was which. Today, I thought we were okay the first half, certainly the first half of the first half. And then obviously the way we came out, I think Chris Sutton in the commentary was saying, we need to get a rock up their arse, basically, because they just didn't look that they had the speed of the game. They just didn't. They weren't up to it, and it was missing them out. Second balls on that pitch were massively important. I'm sure that was discussed before the game. You've got to try and read those second balls off somebody's touch or whatever, and be sure of your pass, and try not to play in the areas where the pitch is terrible. We kept doing that. I mentioned Scales. Carter Vickers was guilty of it. Balls were getting played in behind, and Scales could have taken a touch, and found a pass, held off a striker, but he put it straight out for a throw-in, and that throw-in was like a corner, and it was constant momentum building for Dundee because of the mistakes we were making before. So we brought a lot of it onto ourselves. Again, credit to Dundee as well, but we brought a lot of it on ourselves because we're trying to play in areas that it just wasn't really possible to play on the ground. It was just bobbling around, and Dundee played to that better than us for large parts of the game. And that's why the manager changed it. And I think there actually an immediate effect when he makes the change. Awata and Ida coming on. Kyogo was bullied at the game. The ball's bouncing, second balls. He's not getting them. He's not beating any of those centre halves in a physical battle. So he starts dropping in, causes more problems for us because we didn't have an out ball. So it just meant that Dundee could be more on the front foot and we were on the back one.
You would have to say that Kyogo got zero service, more or less. Certainly never get much of anything. James in the box didn't get any chances to get on the end of things, and that's a big disappointment. The other thing for me though is definitely what Brydo leans towards. The fact that we know the conditions are probably, I know there was pictures doing the rounds of Dens Park yesterday or Friday and it looked like the San Siro, but the reality is very different. When you see it up close there, definitely rocky, definitely bouncing up at different times. But you've got to play the conditions. So whether Celtic find themselves at Celtic Park, Livingston or Dundee today, they need to adjust to that and adjust quickly. And it's abundantly clear, and I know that's home advantage and they're very used to that surface, but Dundee were just reading the bounce much better. And one thing which really got to me is they were getting on the second balls. You know, two guys would compete, pick any two, a Celtic guy and a Dundee guy, but they always seemed to be the guy that was getting it as it was dropping. And that for me wasn't good. And Chris Sutton made the point that must have been about 10 minutes into the second half. And it was a time where he said, you know, they need a rocket. Somebody had to remind Celtic and their players that we were the ones in a title race, because for a time, James, it didn't look like it.
No, Dundee were, you know, showing all of the drive and invention. You know, just they played on that pitch. They know what they're doing around that pitch. I wonder if we're too set, and I mean Rodgers is too set in his ways on more than a couple of things. You know, is that a game for Ida? I think Thomas in the comments has mentioned it there. Is that a game where Ida starts because he can handle that physicality? He's definitely a good favourite for second balls. He showed, he wasn't great today, by the way, but he showed when he came on, he can be physical and successfully physical, and you know, getting the ball out in the corners and stuff like that. I think Rodgers has also got a blind spot when it comes to Tony Ralston. I think he rates Ralston, and you can see in the last few games, Alistair Johnson just really flagging in the last 15 minutes of games. And I think you need Ralston on there just as a steady right back, nothing too fancy. Johnson has been poor getting out to balls against Rangers, against Aberdeen, against Dundee today. And I think it's just, I rate Johnson, I like him a lot, but it's just sheer tiredness. So we need to play the conditions, but we also need to play to the strength of our squad as well, and utilise the squad when there's tiredness around. So maybe some things for Rodgers to learn. I'll tell him what to do. That's what to do.
Keep him posted, I'm sure he's awaiting your call. But there is a bit of fatigue around. You can see that, and I think, I don't know if I read it on Twitter at half time or whatever, but someone's saying we've got two different issues at right and left side of defence. The right side issue is not getting out quick enough to shut down the cross, and the left side is we're absolutely terrified when the cross does make it in. This isn't picking on Scales and picking on Taylor. The stats tell you, a graphic came up on the screen at one point when we were under a lot of pressure, and it showed you the action areas in terms of Dundee coming down their right-hand side or the centre or their left-hand side, and all the stuff was coming down their right, i.e. Celtic's left. That's not by accident. That doesn't happen by chance. You know, these teams are well drilled, they're well prepped in terms of identifying strengths and weaknesses in their opposition, and it's clear that Tony Dock and his side, and they're not the only ones in Scottish football to have said this is where Celtic are their weakest. It would be foolish not to do so. It'd be foolish not to commit us down that, because that's where you're likely to get the most change. However, I'm going to switch the tone here because it is a win, and I don't want to make this a moaning. We're 20 minutes in, and it's felt a wee bit negative for the most part, but it is important that we catch these different issues, at least discuss them before looking at the more positive side of things. Brydo makes the point, James, there is an almost immediate impact when the subs come on. So it's Adam Ida and it's Tomoki Iwata for Kyogo and for McGregor. Thomas, I put the comment up a second ago, but Thomas Dawson makes the good point that Adam Ida, brings more to the attack than Kyogo away from home. Certainly these type of grounds, I done the pre-match with Paddy on Friday, and I was saying, listen, Kyogo's still got to be the man. He's our top man, you know, main goal scorer, talismanic striker, all that stuff. But actually, on reflection, when you see the way that game's playing out, with Ricky Lamy and the other centre half, whose name escapes me just now, man mountains, plural, so I don't know, big guys, right? And I think we need to adjust better. And I think Ida, as he showed, James, as soon as he came on, he started to ruffle feathers. Tomoki Iwata was starting to just connect some of the passes. And just after that, it's James Forrest who gets what turned out to be the winner.
Yeah, I think the subs had a really big impact, just in terms of Iwata didn't necessarily finish the game great, but straight in the passing, but he just gives that outlet when he came on, and Ida stretches it because he ruffles them up at the other side. So yeah, they were both good substitutions, maybe even a wee bit late at 60 minutes. You know, I think I was saying in our chat about 50 minutes, 5 minutes into the second half, need to change this because nothing was happening in the midfield. It was just stoic, static. And yeah, that energy and that, switching from, I think, the first 50 minutes of the second half, we hadn't had a shot on goal, not on target, not a shot on goal, and the majority of possession was Dundee, and that changed in the subs, which gives us the pressure, which leads to Jamesy driving through the defence and getting his chance.
And Brad, I thought it was just really sharp reactions. James Forrest, he's pressing high. He's noticed just a bit of slackness, and he's sprung onto it. Before you know it, I think it was Hatate trying to play him in. It was a tight pass, but Forrest's been competing for the ball. sometimes when your luck's in, and he got the break, and he's just kept it low and hard. You'd maybe say it's fairly fortunate it's gone right through the goalie's legs, but he's smashed it nicely. He's got great connection, and it's the technique again. Other guys, and you can maybe look at what might Palmer, Yang, or Nicholas Kuhn, potentially have done there. They'd have potentially sliced it or gone high or gone wide or whatever. James Forrest just knows that my main job here, and he's got fractions, to think about it, is get the head over it, drill it low and hard, and there's every chance it will hit the net. And again, it's just a sign of his experience.
So I think I was muted them. That's exactly it. The experience. That's why experience gets you over the line. And we don't score that goal if Yang's playing in there. I think Yang's okay, but we said many months ago that he shouldn't ever be the player that's starting for us. Our recruitment's got us in that spot, and he ended up being a thought to start. He should always been a player that's coming off the bench to build his Celtic career, hopefully. Forrest has done that countless times. So he makes his own luck by his hard work. He's also clever. He's playing against that player, and the player does the same thing every time he's got the ball, and he's tried to turn away, and Forrest has read it, blocked it, and then he's made himself an option in an area where he might just get on the end of something, and that's exactly what happened. And that does, as James alluded to earlier there, that is off the back of the subs allowing us to get up the park. Either being able to hold the ball up, building attacks, getting throw-ins, getting corners, whatever it may be, but it allows us to play in a safer area of the park, i.e. the Dundee half. Iwata, I thought, made a real huge difference for the first 10 minutes he was on. And ultimately, we get the goal, we go 2-0 up, and that, okay, they didn't have a great end to the game, but it got us a 2-0 lead that got us over the line. And again, that's all we're looking for. But Forrest, technique, he's there, he knew exactly what he was doing, I think. Just hit it low, as hard as you like, and the odds are you're going to tuck that away. And he done that, and I was delighted for him because he deserves it.
He's had a lot of grief and a lot of pressure on him today as well, because he gets thrown in, and there'll be a lot of folk that might be in this chat waiting to say I told you so. If James didn't have a good game today, so real credit to him for what he put in. There's a couple of other changes, in terms of Dundee. They've actually made 4 subs in the last 20 minutes, and it's clear they've tried to put some target men on and go for it. James, they did put us under pressure. The frustration for me is that when you go 2-0 up, I think if you kill that for 10, maybe 15 minutes, that's it. You can extinguish any threat that Dundee might be bringing. But they've scored their goal 7 minutes or so after James Forrest, and it was inevitable it was going to come from a set piece. The lad is Owen Dodgson, the left back. Wicked delivery on the guy. Really, yeah. I think they had 8 corners overall, and he certainly hit the majority until he gets subbed off. And particularly the ones that were going from their right-hand side, in terms of in-swingers, they were causing us all sorts of chaos. Now, you can't do anything about the size of your players. Greg Taylor is the size he is. Nicholas Kuhn is the size he is. Kyogo's the size he is. But there was a situation, you might have seen it, for one of our corners, and Greg Taylor was up against Mo Salah. Guy's a machine. Big guy. I think he was almost a full head bigger than Greg Taylor. And as I say, Greg Taylor's, I would expect, as tall as he's ever going to get. I don't think there's any stretching to come. So you need to organise that better. It just felt a wee bit too fast and loose. It was just like bodies were coming in and we were saying, right, we'll just stick anybody on them. And I wonder, even just take Greg Taylor out the box and make sure there's bigger guys around. I don't know, but the bottom line is they were causing chaos, and the goal's scrappy. It ultimately comes off a deflection from Adam Ida, but we were struggling to deal with them. Yeah,
I mean, it's a conversation with the summer, really. You can't do anything about it. And in terms of like moving Taylor somewhere else, we don't have the bodies, for big lads to cover the likes of Silla, because they've got another 5 or 6 big lads. So Taylor's going to have to pick up somebody big. He might as well pick up somebody's position. I thought the marker was actually posted missing for the goal. Guy got 2 shots at it, and he didn't have a marker. So I couldn't really see it. Johnson had picked someone up. I don't know where CCV was, if it was him or it was Scales, but the guy's just free and clear in the middle. And when he gets his second shot in, if he just stays out of the way, Hart's got a fairly routine save, but it is what it is, kind of thing, just comes off him and there you go. I thought he'd have gone up the park and scored to rub that out. He didn't quite get there, but if you look at what Rodgers likes in a player, it's physicality, height and talent in your position. So I think come the summer we'll see those issues addressed, and not like for like. There'll be real physicality, and there will be a much more physical team next year, I'd say.
Yeah, and I think there's definitely situations there to be addressed in the summer, but it's not one for now. It's not one for today, and it's not one for the next 5 games either, because there's nothing you can do. You need to work with the tools you've got. But I would just be hopeful of a bit more organisation at corners. And there are a few that I thought Joe Hart should have been coming out to claim. He did show his experience. I'm quite happy the way he ran the clock down towards the end. We've seen situations with Joe Hart where he still gets some handball in his head and we're 2-1 up and he's rushing to take by kicks. There was a wee bit more composure there. But at the end of the day, the players, James, I'll stick with you, they've had to dig deep. It's not been pretty. But do you know what? This is what title races are. So as much as we would all, I predicted 3-0, and I'd have loved to have seen a swashbuckling 3-0 performance, and maybe 10 minutes in, it looks like that's what we're going to get. But when the stakes are so high, when every point's a prisoner, every goal's a prisoner, the players are well aware that Rangers have picked up their 3 points just half an hour or so before kickoff. You might get that wee bit of anxiety. Now, if you go 2-0 up in the opening half hour, let's all relax. But the longer these games go on, James, it does become a mind game. And ultimately, Celtic have done what they've had to do to go over the line. And dare I say, that's what champions do.
Yeah, that's the message that will be in the taken into the dressing room. After the game there, that's you've chalked one off the board with 3 points. So 4 games to go, 3 of them at home, 1 of them with only your fans in the stadium. So just keep the momentum going. Of course, it's nerve-wracking. You'd love it to be 5-0 and all these things. I think the splits worked really well this year in terms of the teams that are in it. There's no one really just plodding through. Hearts are the ones that are most inconsequential in terms of their position. Isn't going to change. Killie not quite home and hose for third, but everyone else is really trying. So you're going to get tough games against Dundee. We'll have a tough one in Kilmarnock in a few weeks' time. So it's worked out that way. But I've got no issues with performance today in terms of, I'm not going to moan about that at all, because it's just a title race, and this is how title races should be. They're tough. Arsenal going 3 up today, and you're thinking, they're going to canter, and that's a really strong mark. They end up 3-2, a bit nervy at the end, all that stuff. So if you don't like this, title races aren't for you.
Yeah, this is exactly what it is. Brydo, just looking at the bigger picture, so great to get the win. Really pleased for James Forrest, and loads of really positive comments coming in for James in the comments. Also, thanks to Fred Williams. Fred saying, great show, guys, and he's a new subscriber. So thanks to Fred and everyone who continues to subscribe. But Brydo, looking forward, we're obviously bang in the midst of this title race and some big calls to the manager to make. What does he do next? We've got Hearts at home. Do you stick with James Forrest? Is he now the man with the shirt? And any other changes you would make? We've discussed Callum McGregor's situation, bit off the boil. James has maybe suggested Alistair Johnson's a bit tired. Are there many changes we can make at this stage?
I think if Maida's fit, Maida starts. That for me, when he was out the last time, we really, really struggled. I think we probably dropped points in that period. And we just didn't look like we had any options. We didn't look like we were really scared. Other teams' defences, they could then press 5-10 yards further up the park, and that put us under pressure in a defence that was changing all the time and wasn't strong enough to withstand the pressure. And ultimately, we conceded goals and dropped points. The defence is a lot better than it has been. It's been more consistent for sure. But I think Maida, for me, would have to come in if he is fit and able to play from the start. And that would probably then mean Johnson, James Forrest would probably go in either in the right wing, or he would go back on the bench. And I just think that's not necessarily always a bad thing. But he got his 2 goals today, and he'd be well within his rights to say, listen, I'm doing okay. He got his goal against Aberdeen. I'm contributing. I'm doing my bit, so I deserve to start. So Alistair Johnson, for me, I think has been okay. I do agree with James at times where he's maybe looked too tired to close the cross down, not getting close to the winger. And is that tiredness, or is it mentally tired? Is he not switching off? He's a fairly experienced player, international and things. So he knows his job. I thought he came onto a game after a a bit of a lull in his time with us. He started off amazingly with us, and then he's just had a period, but he's not been so good. I thought he kind of started to creep back to those levels. But you're right. Perhaps I just don't think Rodgers rates Ralston at all. But a game like today would have suited Tony Ralston because it was very physical. You know, the ball's bouncing about. He's also stands up and he's counted regarding aerial battles and stuff as well. He's pretty good in there. So, you know, Ralston's not... I've never had a problem with Tony Ralston at all. When he's come in, he's never let us down. Much the same as I've never had a problem with James Forrest playing for us. It's just, if we have to progress, you wouldn't see them as often. That's what I would say. But I'd keep the midfield three the same. Was Bernardo on the bench today? Actually, I didn't.
I'll check, but I think he was, yeah.
So I was surprised that he didn't get involved. I don't know if he would be carrying a knock or something.
He was on the bench.
You know, so again, he's athletic, got a bit of legs to get onto his second balls and help the striker. So surprised I didn't see him in there today. But perhaps again, it's a very calculated get 90 minutes into Hatate's legs. Maybe that's part of the plan. Who knows? But the good thing is we have options, you know, for these games. I watched the Rangers game before our game, and they don't have them. You know, they don't have the Dessers up front, and they don't have anybody else. We could change the course of our whole style by bringing on Ida over Kyogo. And if they started next week, we wouldn't have a problem with Ida starting because Kyogo's had a couple of quiet games. So there are options, but I don't expect to see a great deal of change other than Maida if he's fit.
You might be right. I mentioned Callum McGregor's route back to fitness, if you like, in terms of the minutes he's had. Rio Hatate's is fairly interesting in that it's always been just a wee bit more till he gets that 90 minutes today, James. And I wonder if that was very much in the plan. He wasn't at his best. His effort off the post was a bit of class. He had a couple of other moments. You know, he's great at dropping the shoulder and, you know, losing his marker. But over the piece, he didn't give us a 90-minute performance. But in terms of his fitness and recovery, I think that was crucial. So, you know, his 5 games since coming back, he gets 65 minutes against Livingston, 65 against Rangers, 71 v St Mirren, 86 v Aberdeen at the weekend there, and 90 today. So he's on the up and up, and that can only be good as he gets his sharpness back as well. James, aside from Celtic's individuals, and I agree with Brydo, I don't think there can and probably should be many changes. You know, we're in this real kind of critical phase where Rodgers needs to go with what he believes is his tried and trusted. But in the bigger picture, so someone in the comments, I'll try and dig out, was saying that they fear this Kilmarnock game. Now, Brendan Rodgers won't look too far forward, nor will the players, and nor should they. But if we look at the bigger picture just now, of course it remains an if Celtic can take care of Hearts at the weekend coming, Saturday, 4th of May, you then go into a position where effectively you can kill the whole thing off with a win against Rangers at Ibrox. So forget worrying about Kilmarnock, forget even worrying about cup finals at this moment in time. 2 massive performances for Celtic, and you're in an incredible place. And I also believe, I think I heard yesterday that Hearts have now secured third, or just about secured third. And you wonder actually, even if it came to the Kilmarnock game, how motivated are a Kelly team who can't finish third, but also can't finish 5th, given the gaps? You know, you've got to think of all of that. But how do you feel, James, about the potential of 2 huge performances letting Celtic achieve the big goal this season?
Uncomfortable. Been over the course before. Nah. Unless there's heavy goals in those games, then I wouldn't be comfortable with a 6-point lead getting into the end, because any slips and goal difference and all that stuff. So no, I take the point. I'd much rather see, well, of course, I'd much rather see Rangers drop points next week and we actually just beat them to win the league at Parkhead, and that's it, done and dusted, fully done. So as long as there's math still involved, I'm not comfy. Even, you know, I'd even the Dundee United situation where I'm 36 goals to the good, and then I'd maybe just kind of let it go and enjoy it a wee bit. But nah, you got to just keep digging.
Brydo, what about you? Give me something sensational.
I said, we beat Rangers, win the league. That's it. End of story. You beat Rangers, you win the league. I actually don't think they'll. I don't think that's the only game that they'll drop points. Anyway, they got very lucky today. So if we thought that we were poor, they were worse. But it's not about them. I suppose it's about us. But that game's on the horizon. I think it would be really, really silly to even really think about that, even although we all do. But we're bad for it. We're all bad for it because we know how big it is. But Hearts beat us 2-0 at Celtic Park the last time. And I was actually quite vocal about Lawrence Shankland, and I think he's in a disgrace of a shape of a football player as a professional, and he scores the goals and he's going to win the top awards in our country. And I think that's a shocking example of what we've got to offer in our league. I think I watched the game against Rangers, the semi-final, and I thought he was in a terrible state, but he's still dangerous and he scores goals. And for me, the Hearts game at home, sometimes a team with nothing to lose or nothing to gain, they just go out and have nothing to fear. And, Hearts fans will have nothing more than putting a spanner in the works for our title challenge. We've reminded them all these years about the time that we stole it from them and we beat St Mirren at Love Street. And I don't even know if I was alive then, but I still wind Hearts fans up about it. So they would love nothing better than to try and get some or salvage something in regards to that. So they love us not winning. So the Hearts game's the next big one. Whether Rangers do their bit, but for me, if we beat Rangers at Celtic Park, which I fully expect us to do, and I've been saying it for like 3 months. When we were 3 points behind, 2 points behind near the game in hand and stuff, thinking we might be 5 points behind or whatever it was. This is what we thought. We're in a far better position than perhaps I thought we were going to be. So beat them, the league, James, is done.
James Brydo was saying he doesn't know if he was alive in 1986. I think he might have been, but you were alive and you were there. Do you think Hearts are still out to get revenge? Do you think they're still sore about that one?
I would be. They'll never forget that. So, and it's there's a lot more to it. Hearts' hatred of Celtic than that. It goes a wee bit deeper. I think that's enough said on that. But yeah, I mean, they'll be hell for leather, whether they're home and dry in the league or whatever. They'll be hell for leather against us next week. Don't know who we've picked up as a match official. Thankfully, it's not going to be John Beaton, but they'll probably fling him on VAR because he enjoyed it the last time, didn't he? So, really, really tough game. If we get through that one with 3 points, you're just sitting in the position to go and do it against Rangers. And of course, Brydo, I agree with you. Like, if we can get it done against Hearts and Rangers, it would take a collapse for us not to win it. And I'll celebrate after that game like a league title, but I'll still be a wee bit nervous.
Yeah, do you know, I've seen a lot of John Beaton recently. I'm hoping that's us for at least a spell. I think I've seen more of him than Callum McGregor in recent games, James. So hopefully he gets a wee bit of a back seat. A few folks, and I think yourself as well, James, getting anxious about all this looking ahead. So let's stick to the here and now. Let's stick to the fact that Celtic got a huge win today. Doesn't matter how it came about. 2-1, it remains 3 points clear and 5 goals clear at the top of the table. We'll get to Hearts in due course. We'll cover a lot of it in the weekly show on Monday. We'll do a preview on Friday coming. But for the meantime, James, your final thoughts on today's 2-1 win over Dundee?
Just marking off the calendar. It's at the end of the day, they saw the game out, and it's another professional performance in terms of just getting that win over the line, getting your 3 points, getting on the bus, getting down the road, recuperating, back to another hard week of training, being ready for Hearts on Saturday. So yeah, I'm feeling good about it all. I've just been a Celtic fan for too long, but 4 games to go, 3 at home, get it done.
Brydo, I can feel the tension from James, but I think I'm trying to work out. I think he remains quite positive and quite confident. But what about yourself? How are you feeling after today's win?
Yeah, I think it's a good win. It was a potential banana skin. Your pal Hugh Keevins wouldn't have any money on us getting a draw. So I read today. No, I think it's not 11 players don't win leagues, even 14, 15 players don't win league titles. And I think what we're seeing now is the squad really not coming together, but they're all doing their bit. James's came in, Ida's doing his bit, whether it be from the bench, Iwata's coming in with a bit of composure, just utilising that as best we can. And I think, we're just rolling on. We're rolling on. We weren't great today by any stretch. We weren't great against Aberdeen. There's 2 games, but the outcome is we're in the cup final, and the outcome is we've won the 3 points, and we're a game closer to win the title that probably only 3 or 4 weeks ago, before playing Rangers at Ibrox, we were maybe thinking we've let them in and they might not let it go. So we're not doing that. We've got, it's our title, it's our trophy, and I think we're doing enough to defend it and keep it. And I think as long as we keep doing that, and slugging it out if we have to, so be it. It doesn't have to be pretty. Just get over the line, and then I'll absolutely destroy them. So I'll take even more. I'll take joy from that as well. I'll take joy from it destroying them, and I'll take joy from us winning, and all the stuff in that box of being a Celtic fan and winning. That's it.
That'll do for me, Brydo, and a nice way to round things off. But you know, Celtic will play and have played better than they done today and drop points. So I think I'll take the nervy, slightly anxious 2-1 win that keeps us 3 clear at the top of the table. Thanks to you both, to James and Brydo, for joining us here on a Sunday afternoon. Thanks as always to everyone who joins us and comments in the live. It's really appreciated. Really helps make the show what it is. And of course, thanks to everyone who continues to listen to the Celtic Exchange podcast. Have a great weekend in the meantime, guys, and we'll see you on Monday.